What's Gucci everyone, it's AJ here, and today I wanted to make a video on simple object-oriented enlightenment techniques. And I guess that's what I'll call this bajillionth playlist I made, object-oriented enlightenment. Woo! Imagination. Just like, have you guys seen that SpongeBob episode where he goes, imagination? That's my favorite. It's also one of the classics. So what I want to talk about here is basically object parameter passing, to get back on subject. And so let's say, man, I say so a lot in these videos. I have a class, and this is a Ruby class, but it can be probably Ruby or Python, and it's about it. I have a class, and let's call it task. And I'm going to spell that right. And I have a class called task, and I'm going to give it a few attributes. And inside these attributes, I'm going to initialize these attributes inside my constructor. And in Ruby, you do that with the initialize method. And if you're using another language, you would just imagine that being whatever your kind of whatever you use as your constructor. So this is your constructor. And so when I have initialize, I can have it take. Let's see. When a task usually has a date. It has a started by. It has a date that you want it to start on, so it has a start date. Be a little more specific. It has an end date, and it has a, let's just say it has a number that says effort needed, so kind of high, low, or medium. So it has an effort needed. And so that's pretty cool. And so I could have, I could get these, someone could make a new object and pass all these objects in, and I could have at start date equals start date, and do the same thing for all of these, really. If only I could type faster for you guys, but I don't know how to do that, or I haven't practiced enough, because that's how life is. You need to practice. But, okay, so then I have my constructor. I pass in the local variables that I could initialize when I call the new function, and then that gets passed into my instant variables, which is just, in Ruby, it's with an @ sign. So then I can say, okay, start date, end date, blah, blah, blah. I've got all my variables initialized. But what my whole point of this main video and me dragging on forever is that what it's pretty bad is that in object orientation enlightenment, you need to, there is a lot of things you need to be able to count on. You need to be able to count on how objects are connecting to each other, how they're talking to each other, what's inheriting from what, and how messages are being passed. But you actually want to have as much abstraction as possible. You want to not have to worry about as many things as you can. So one way you can take away abstraction here is that I have constructed my parameters to have a start date, end date, and effort needed. And what I don't like about that is that I am counting on someone who knows about this task object to know in which order the parameters are passed in. And maybe they don't. Maybe they think effort needed is first and then start date, end date. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to make these parameters I'm going to make my initializer called args. And so what args is going to be is args is going to default to an empty hash, but I'm going to say I'm just going to take one parameter and call it args, which is going to be a hash. So it's going to be basically a dictionary. And what the dictionary is going to do is it can have all these different values. And so what I'm going to say is I'm going to say, okay, hey, give me this dictionary with values so you don't have to specify a start date, end date, or effort needed. But if you do, I'll make that the variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say args.fetch, and what fetch does, here you go, is that it returns a value from the hash for the given key. If the key can't be found, there are several options. With no arguments, it will raise an exception. It will raise an exception. If default is given, then it will be returned. If the option block is specified, then it will be returned. So I can use fetch here to basically say, hey, did you give me this option in my hash or my dictionary? Or if you didn't, return a default value that I can set. So I can say fetch, and I can say, okay, well, I want you to get me the symbol for a start date. But if you don't give me a start date, I'm going to pass 1/1/2014. And I'll do the same thing for end date. So if you don't give me a end date, an end date symbol, dang it, end date, an end date symbol, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it for you, and I'm going to set it to 12/12/2014. Does that make sense? No, but it's my defaults, and you're going to like it. Or else you're not going to watch this video because I'm boring you to death. Maybe I shouldn't say these things in videos. Maybe it makes people not watch them anymore. Just a hint. Okay, so yeah, so effort needed. And there we go. So now that we have effort needed, so then I can say effort needed, I'll just say medium. So there you go. So now instead of placing the onus on the user to know what order the params are or what kind of params there are, I am going to say, okay, instead, you can give me a few arguments. And so you can give me any arguments you want. And if you have some, I'll put them into my application. So then, the user can read the documentation and can see which arguments he's going to have to set. Because to use any class, you're going to have to read the documentation or you're going to have to look at something, right? You can't just start abandoning looking at the class. So either they're going to look at the source code, or they're going to look at the class. So either way, they'll be able to see everything. But this way, they won't be boggled down by maybe they'll forget the order. Because if you imagine if I had a lot of parameters. What if I had 5 or 6 settings you could possibly set? It would get very bad. And that's the case when you really start using kind of a hash as your initializer. When you have all these different types of settings, and most of the time you're going to be using defaults. But sometimes, you're going to want to override that default. And so that's what the power of kind of using this hash of this initializer is. So that's pretty cool. So then, you can do t equals task.new. I spelled that wrong for the millionth time, task.new, and then if I don't pass it in anything, all the defaults will go, or if I pass it in something like, start date, then I can say, hello world, or whatever. Even though that is not good because it's not a date, I can say 2/12/13, and there you go, boom, t equals task.new. And that's all I got for you guys today. This video's been going on too long enough. See ya, bros, and see ya, girls, next tomorrow. Hi again, everyone. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys for liking, subscribing, and commenting on this video. If you want to watch more videos of the same category, you can click over here. And if you want to watch any new videos and learn something new, you can click over here. Have the best day of your life.